What's up, Wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers? Welcome to the video feed for yet another exciting edition of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall, hosted by me, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. And do not adjust your calendars, your TVs, wherever you're watching us. It is not Sunday, it's Monday. We'll get into a little bit of why that is as we get into the episode. All that being said, got a lot of stuff to get into, and it's Monday, so I got to go pick up my kid from school. So let's get right into episode 99.
Who 1, 2, 3, go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall. Go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall.
All right, Wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers. Welcome to another very exciting edition of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall, hosted by me, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke, and this is episode 99. I noticed after I started recording that I did not update my episode number on my dry erase board here. I got it right that time. Let's see how many times I say 98 throughout this, because I didn't update from the last recording. So we'll see if I can keep track of it. It's amazing how one little dry erase board with an episode number on it can be so needed, so necessary. That's the word we're looking for. Yes, and my voice is not 100%. I am feeling fine. We'll get into all of those reasons why it was a long weekend. And yes, I realize it is not actually Sunday. Don't adjust your calendars. Don't adjust your YouTube viewing, your podcast listening. It is, in fact, Monday, but it is what we call, mainly in the United States, I don't know if other countries kind of refer to it that, Super Bowl Monday. A lot of people push for this to be a day off from work, but because of that, I spent yesterday's time, which could have been in the studio, I spent it hanging out in my backyard on the deck, grilling some food, eating, and watching the Super Bowl, which most of the country was doing, even those not into sports. Watch it for other things, halftime shows, commercials, all kinds of that stuff. So, so that's why we're here on a Monday. Luckily, I was able to commandeer my studio for today and get this episode in. Now, of course, before we get into the meat of everything, now that we are sufficiently tangented already, we always kick things off with our social plugs. You can keep up with us during episodes, after episodes, before episodes, and whenever you so please. And you can do that in multiple locations. One of those would be facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. That's right, facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. That is our official Facebook page. You're going to get all kinds of important updates through there. We also have our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to that, youtube.com/GoTellItToTheWall. Again, youtube.com/GoTellItToTheWall. Really, if you put Go Tell It to the Wall into even into Google, it's just going to pop these things up. But we do have the fancy custom URLs, so use them if you so please. And, of course, my own personal Instagram account, which is at SoCalSean, SoCalSean, at SoCalSean, there on Instagram. Going to get all of your photo content through there. And then, of course, do not forget our website, our official website, SeanO'RourkeLive.com. That's going to include links to those platforms I just mentioned, as well as a link to our Patreon campaign. Man, my voice is not 100%, but usually I can pronounce Patreon. Our Patreon campaign, as well as our merch website. So if you want to support us financially, those are two of the best avenues to do so, right there on SeanO'RourkeLive.com. You're also going to find exclusive content that you won't find on any other of those platforms I just mentioned. It's exclusive to SeanO'RourkeLive.com. I think my t-shirt, I got to stop looking at myself in the camera. My t-shirt's wrinkled. I'm all over the place today. I'm just exhausted. We'll get into a lot of that. But before we get into kind of the entertainment news side of things, and I explain why my voice is not 100%, we always have to get into some digital trends. So let's talk about some happenings around the social platforms, digital trends, things trending on the digital platforms, I guess you could say, and stuff that I find interesting, stuff that's ridiculous, all that great stuff. I really feel like we're all over the place today. It's going to be one of those episodes, Wall fans. We started off the rails, and we'll see if we can steer it back on here. But Bobo and Marge, I'm shocked. I know everyone is shocked, but they are yet again outraged on social media right now. And, whenever they're outraged, it's something that you're most likely going to be supporting. The opposite stance of theirs. If you're on their side the majority of the time, their opinion, you're probably not listening to this podcast. So, if you haven't heard about this one yet, they are very outraged about an occurrence at the beginning of the Super Bowl yesterday. Because this is something that's kind of been added into sporting events. NFL, has incorporated it, and then this year specifically, they had it sung live, and that would be the song "Lift Every Voice and Sing," which is known as the Black national anthem. It's affectionately referred to that way, and I don't want to get into all the background. It in a positive way, it is referred to as the Black national anthem, and that's why they have started incorporating it. But of course, we have Bobo the Clown out there in Colorado and Marge down there in Georgia, who just love to complain about everything. And apparently, it is just more woke culture, as a certain side of the aisle likes to say. Everything's woke. Like, can you just come up with another word? We're getting even I'm tired of throwing this woke word around. Probably going to talk about it more during this episode, of course, because that's what we do. But they are outraged at a song. And I think a lot of the theme of this episode, not even on purpose, just because of how everything shook out, is going to be, it does not affect you. And that's the thing here. A lot of times when people like Bobo are getting outraged, it's about things that literally don't affect them. They're freaking out about LGBTQ rights. And that doesn't affect them at all. You want to complain about something that affects you at least. But here we have, they're completely offended at the Black national anthem being sung before a sporting event. I guess it ruined their entire day. They probably couldn't, they were so upset they probably went and shot their guns straight up into the air or posed with giant guns just to show everyone how anti-woke they are. This is, if you're not aware of that, that's something that happens quite a bit when it comes to Bobo and Marge out there in Congress. But I just don't get it, why people get so upset about something. It's a song. Why are you so upset? They still sang the national anthem, the Star Spangled, whatever the national anthem for the U.S. I don't care about the damn thing. You want to have it? Have it. Who cares? Find other things to get outraged about. And I would be so upset if they were my Congress people. It's like, find something better to complain about. I'm not worried about a song during a entertainment event that is watched by millions of people. Not something I would worry about. In fact, another thing that I've noticed a lot lately, and this has been it's always trending. People like to complain, and they think, think it's funny. And it's the whole masculinity now versus then thing. You see a lot of these memes, and it'll show some guy like in the 30s and dressed in the whole suit and hat and everything, and then they'll show, like a hipster dude from recent times with like a beard or a man bun or whatever, and they're like, what is this? Why are men dressing like this now? Again, complaining. It doesn't affect anyone. It really doesn't. What does it matter to you how a guy dresses? I've never understood this at all. Now, if it's super offensive, you got a guy walking around naked around kids or something, that's one thing. You're literally talking about someone's style that has no effect on you whatsoever. The thing that also really gets me about this is I envision the people complaining that masculinity is lost now, or, men don't know how to dress anymore, whatever it is. These are probably the same people that would have been beating up others that were different back during those times. Because what I always say to this, and here's the thing. I don't have any kind of style. I wear t-shirts and jeans, but I get it. To me, yes, if I'm dressing up, I'm wearing a suit. It's like once or twice a year, weddings and funerals. I kind of dress more classically. That's just my own preference. I also have purple hair and a beard. So there's varying degrees of all this, but the thing that gets me the most whenever this comes up, and the most important thing is, you were looking at a photo of, a gentleman in the 30s, 40s, whatever, even 50s. And you can say, yes, I prefer this style, but the big difference is we don't even know if that guy wanted to dress that way or if he just had to. So regardless of what style you prefer, you should enjoy the fact that we now currently live in a society where the guy with the man bun or the leggings or whatever different style is not getting beat up or killed. And we just throw that to the side and instead make fun of them. There's just no reason for that. Again, it does not affect you in any way. Yet we're going to complain about it. More outrage about things that, here we go. Just outrage about things that don't affect you. This one was going all over Twitter and stuff for the past week or so. So Chick-fil-A, if you've been a longtime fan of the podcast or really just Go Tell It to the Wall in general, you know that we're not fans of Chick-fil-A. This is simply because of their stance on LGBTQ rights as well as women's rights. They do not align with the kind of moral compass that is Go Tell It to the Wall. But all that being said, I do have to defend them a little bit here. They decided to come out with a cauliflower sandwich. Now, depending where you live, you've probably seen cauliflower used. Now, I live in Southern California. You go many places, and there's cauliflower buffalo wings. And it's literally cauliflower with buffalo sauce. It's for people that want a meatless option. Now, I'm a meat eater, so I'm not usually ordering these things, but I have no problem with there being a meatless option. Well, Chick-fil-A fans across the country decided that Chick-fil-A, and here's that word again, Chick-fil-A is being woke by offering a vegetarian option. Every topic today, Wall fans, it does not affect you in any way. You don't have to order the cauliflower chicken sandwich. Now, I could understand complaining if Chick-fil-A came out and said, we're only going to have cauliflower sandwiches now, or we're not going to have real chicken, only vegetarian. I get that. There's actually a burger place not far from me in my neighborhood. They had regular hamburgers and veggie burgers at one time. They went to all veggie burgers. And it was well, I'm not going to go there now. I'm not looking for veggie burgers. So I was a little bit annoyed, but I was also all right, that's your choice. So I could see that complaint, but come on. Just because there's another option, everyone's got to freak out. And I'm getting so tired of the wokeness. We got to stop this wokeness, and Chick-fil-A is being woke. It's first of all, do you even understand what you're saying with this whole woke thing? Now, it's just a term everybody throws around. I don't even understand why everyone's using it constantly. But it's really, regardless of how you view the term woke, it is not a woke thing that Chick-fil-A is doing here. It's simply a savvy business decision. Offer a vegetarian option. People who do not eat chicken will then come to your restaurant and order the meatless option, this cauliflower sandwich. It's simple as that. But no, we're going to complain. Jesus Christ. And more complaining on the social platforms. This one I saw flying around just this morning. And it said, oh gosh, this is going in. A couple that just came up today. But of course, Super Bowl yesterday, halftime show. Rihanna. I saw a little bit of it. Personally, I don't really watch the halftime show. That's literally when I get up, I use the restroom, and that's usually when I start grilling. We just grilled some burgers and dogs. Then really just had a couple, two friends over, and my brother-in-law and my father-in-law, is here anyway. So we're all hanging out. But that's when I do burgers and dogs. I'll get the grill going. So I watched a little bit of it. And Rihanna's fine. I enjoy her music as much as the next person. I think, I'm not listening to it like crazy, but I appreciate her as a musician and artist. But apparently, someone started taking close-ups of her outfit. She was wearing this all red outfit. And I still can't figure out exactly which part it is because there's a couple side-by-sides. But it was either her belt or it was part of the harness. Because if you didn't see the halftime show, they were moving platforms, which that part was pretty cool. I'm going, whoa, there's literally, and somebody compared it to Super Smash Brothers, for those of you that have played Super Smash Brothers, the moving platforms and stuff. Real cool. But of course, as people do, conspiracy theorists, they zoomed in, and whether it was the belt or the part of the safety harness, holding her keeping her from falling off the platform, and said, "Look, Rihanna is putting out satanic stuff because apparently this close up, and it's blurry, to some people looked like a pentagram." Now, simple math will show you that, and let's just say it is some kind of symbol and not just a clasp that has nothing to do with anything else. Even if we're at that point, simple math, counting, this shouldn't be that difficult for people because you can do it on two hands. You don't need to take your shoes off even if you're unable to count without your fingers, because God knows some of these conspiracy theorists probably are unable to count to 10 without their fingers. You can see that it is not five-sided. A pentagram, here's a little Latin lesson for you. Penta is 5. 5. Septagram is 7. In fact, I'm sure somewhere in here there's probably a septagram. Unwritten Law has used that on much of their merch and on their Black Album cover. You know, this was not a septagram. It wasn't a pentagram. It was actually a 6-sided star, which makes it even more ridiculous because of all the anti-Semitism we have had lately in this country. Now we have people accusing a 6-sided star, which is, if you're not familiar, the same amount of sides that a Star of David has, a very important Jewish symbol. Now we're having that compared to a pentagram and accusing Rihanna of being some kind of Satanist pushing her agenda through some weird little clasp that's not even 5-sided. It blows my mind what people will come up with. And this was blowing up on Twitter. Everyone's like, and of course there is still some common sense out there. People were saying, hello, it's not even 5-sided. And that's why I'm not sure if it's actually a belt or a harness thing. I did see like a side-by-side, and somebody said, hey, this is like the clasp for the harness that, she was keeping her from falling off the platform. Regardless, it wasn't intentional, clearly. And even if it was intentional, it is 6-sided. It is not a pentagram. So this is simple math. It's not even math, it's counting. My kindergartner would be able to handle this and say, no, that has 6 sides. It's not very difficult. But people have less intelligence than kindergartners, and that's why we just let them all on social media and they put bullshit out there. Anyway, more Disney influencers getting in trouble. We're talking about the firework cake last week. This one, in my opinion, is even worse. You could say the fire hazard and people bumping into a sparkler or whatever, especially in the climate we are currently in. There's 2 instances that came up recently at Disneyland, both disgusting. You can decide for yourselves which one is more disgusting than the other. The first one was a female Disney influencers, in finger quotes, influencer, who was riding the Incredicoaster. And if you're not familiar with the Incredicoaster, or you haven't been to Disneyland in a long time, this is the old, it's this California, like whatever it was. It's the big roller coaster in California Adventure. It was called something else before they changed it to Incredicoaster, but it has a loop. And so this female, who was obviously doing it for a video, decided to take, and you can't take food on to any rides, let alone a roller coaster that has a loop in it and goes quite fast. She decided to bring a bread bowl, fortunately empty from what I can understand, because I saw this at first and I went, oh my God, was there clam chowder or chili in it? That would be even worse. But regardless, decided she was going to eat this bread bowl while riding the Incredicoaster at California Adventure. And as you can imagine, it did not go, it probably went well for what she was trying to capture. It did not go well for anybody sitting behind her, because she did get some of it in her mouth. A lot of it was not going in her mouth. So we're talking about bread flying through the air while you're on a very fast roller coaster with loops and turns and everything else, and some of it going from her mouth, hitting all the people behind her. And who knows who else? People just near the roller coaster, bread's flying. Now you got birds coming in looking for the madness. Dogs and cats being friends. There's a very deep-cut reference for 2 people out there. But can you imagine you're just trying to ride this roller coaster and you get smacked in the head by bread coming out of somebody's mouth? I can't with these Disney influencers anymore. But you're right. I did say we have 2 instances here. And I would question the authenticity. This might be a sleight of hand thing. But if it's either way, it's ridiculous. There's a video that started trending right around the same time of a gentleman riding Splash Mountain. Splash Mountain is still open at Disneyland. I know we've talked about how it's closed at Disney World. Still open. Who apparently dipped a water bottle, an empty water bottle, into the water of Splash Mountain, said, "I am so thirsty," and drank the water from the Splash Mountain ride. I'm not positive, but I'm going to go with this one being a little more disgusting. Although the fact is, at least he was only doing it to himself. I would like to point out that that water is not super clean. Among other things, bodily fluids that may be going through there, children throwing things into the water. There have been instances of people leaving ashes of deceased loved ones on these rides. So keep in mind how many diseases that gentleman now has. Now, of course, all that being said, maybe it's a sleight of hand, and maybe it wasn't actually the Splash Mountain water. I hope for his sake it wasn't the Splash Mountain water, because he's probably got every disease known to man right now. All right, that's enough of this digital trend stuff. Told you we're just off the rails today. This is not going to be a banner episode. If you're sharing the podcast with your friends, direct them to the last episode before they get to this train wreck of an episode that we have today. I am remembering, though, that it is episode 99, despite not updating my dry erase board here. Usually, I've literally done that. I think you can find multiple episodes where I'm calling out the wrong number, most times correcting myself, but sometimes I forget, and then I go back and I'm like, oh yeah, no, that wasn't episode 72. It was episode 73. Again, rely too much on a silly little whiteboard. All right, I want to talk some quick mental health stuff here. And I was reminded of it yesterday because we get so much backlash, and I know I will come on here and complain about things, and I'm like, I don't care about the Grammys, I don't care about the Oscars, but there's a certain line, because often when I say these things, or I'll talk about Marvel, I'm like, I can't keep up with Marvel movies, but I get it. If you enjoy it, enjoy it. And that's when it comes to mental health. There's a lot of things that people take joy from, and then they get a hard time about it. And I know this is a big one, and this is what has brought it up. Think about yesterday. Everybody and their mother who don't watch any kind of sports was specifically going out and saying, oh my God, the Super Bowl is horrible. I hate football, all this other stuff. We don't all have to like the same things. You don't have to watch the game. Personally, I enjoy watching sports at times. Not all the time, but now for me, part of it is the food. I like to sit, have a drink, eat some food, and watch a very exciting game, which panned out yesterday. Didn't work out for the team I was cheering for because my father-in-law is from Philly, so it ended up a little bit disappointing for him and others that were at the party, but still, we had a good time, And this can go for so many different things. We constantly argue about, what music you like, and it's like, you know what? Let people like what they like, or you hear the whole and nowadays it's different, thanks to Marvel and stuff making kind of comic books and stuff more cool. You go back to the 80s and 90s, comic books were not cool. And people get teased for enjoying comic books and things like that. And here comes my dog barking down the hallway. Who knows what he's barking at? Every time. Train wreck. But anyway, from a mental health side of things, I want everyone out there listening to consider this. Again, theme of this episode, it doesn't affect you. You don't have to watch a game. You don't have to watch a movie. You don't have to read that comic book. You don't have to listen to that specific music. You can change the station, trust me. If Coldplay comes on in the car, I'm immediately changing the station. I'm not going to give someone a hard time for liking Coldplay. That's your prerogative. And it's finding what works for you, as long as it's not affecting others. And that's what I'm talking about here. 9 times out of 10, it's not affecting other people. You enjoy what you enjoy. And especially if it helps you from a mental aspect, which is why I want to talk about this from mental health. Don't criticize others, especially when it doesn't affect anyone else. There's a lot of things that we talk about from a common sense standpoint that do affect other people. And sure, this show skews a certain way as far as the music that we talk about, certain entertainment aspects, even the digital trends, but it doesn't mean the other stuff's bad. That's just where we go. And not every show is for everybody. Not every podcast is for everybody. Not every musician is for everybody. Not every sporting event is for everybody. So we need to remember that it's okay to like things. And it's okay to also not be an incredible expert in things. And that's another thing that comes up quite like every year when the Super Bowl rolls around, because so many people gather and they watch it, and not everyone knows about the game. So there's a lot of questions, and it's like, you know what? It's okay. You don't have to know every little thing about it. You don't have to know every single album from a certain artist. And I don't know how it works in the comic book world. I feel like with Marvel, you do have to know everything, but that's just because there's so much moving parts. Like, I'm watching the Ant-Man new movie trailer, and it's like, oh my gosh, now we're in different realms and all of this. It's just like, it's too much to keep up with. But if you enjoy it, enjoy it. I just don't have the brain capacity to deal with it. Let people do things without complaining. We all enjoy different things, and that's okay. Can you imagine if everyone in the world, everyone liked the same stuff? We had no diversity. That would just be pushing everybody's mental health down to the bottom until everyone exploded. Because for me, it is familiarity with things. I'll be honest with everyone, I was having a panic attack before I came into the studio today. I was hyperventilating. I was not prepared. As you can tell from this episode, we are off the rails. And that's how it is sometimes. But sometimes you also have to let those feelings out. And sometimes you need something with familiarity to help you get through that. For me, it's usually music. Maybe it's reading a book, taking a hot shower, taking a cold shower, lifting weights, physical activity, whatever it might be, screaming into a pillow. That one I feel like that one's kind of universal. Sometimes everybody needs to scream into a pillow. That's not why my voice is gone right now. I can tell you that. My voice is gone because multiple shows over the weekend. So Wall fans, common sensors, keep that in mind. It's okay to like different things. And before you criticize somebody just for liking something, again, as long as it's not affecting others, you can criticize the hell out of somebody that's flying a Nazi flag. That is offensive. That is wrong. And that can be dangerous to certain people. So, yes, that. But when it comes to enjoying things, let people enjoy things. We're all going to be better off from a mental health side of things if we just enjoy those things. All right. I decided to get greedy and selfish with the positive news this week. And that's the funny thing is, when you listen to this, I'm sure it's like, he's just kind of throwing things. There is some preparation that goes into this, and that is sometimes can be anxiety-inducing to me, especially when I'm working under a tighter time frame like I am today, with it being Common Sense Sundays on a Monday. It's just extra stress and anxiety that comes into that. So just don't beat yourself up over those things. But that was one of those things, the positive news, I was kind of like, I don't know what to put in here. So I'm going to be selfish with it. I pulled a double, and I'll get into more of it on the entertainment news side of things. On Saturday, had a show Friday night, which I mentioned last episode, and then had a show Saturday night. And I decided once I found out that I could, in fact, overlap two shows, I made my way from one venue to the other venue because I had a bunch of friends there, wanted to see a certain band. Again, we'll talk about it in entertainment news. But the reason I put this in positive news is I walk into Alex's bar. I'm looking for one of the many friends that are there because I knew about where he was hanging out in the bar. And I'm walking down. I look to my right, and I go, guy looks familiar. Was that Trey Cool, the drummer for Green Day? I'm looking, I'm like, that's freaking Trey Cool, the drummer from Green Day. Now, I've talked about Green Day many times before, and I know many people of a certain age, Green Day was kind of a gateway band that got people into it. Either way, they are quite the legendary band, especially if you listen to a certain type of music. And even people that don't listen to like punk and alternative and everything else, they know who Green Day is. Like my mother, for God's sake, knows who Green Day is. She doesn't listen to that kind of music, but she knows who Green Day is. It might be partly my fault, but she knows. And anyone that knows me knows that, I don't tend to, fanboy out. But this was kind of the double whammy of like, oh my gosh, you are legendary. I literally have his Funko Pop. You can't see it in the video feed, and you might be able to see it in some of the still photos that get posted. Got his Funko Pop sitting back there. So I was like, all right. And then on top of that, on-air producer Bridget who is obviously a big part of the Go Tell It to the Wall team, her absolute favorite band is Green Day. So immediately, I was fanboying out a little bit. I texted her and I'm like, I'm at Alex's. Trey Cool is sitting at the bar. So all those things come in, and I'm like, I gotta get a picture and I gotta say hi. So and you don't want to be that guy that's like interrupting. So I'm kind of hanging out, talking to some other friends, and then hit a point where like I could, in fact, go over and talk to him. And the reason I put this in positive news is selfishly because it was a very fun highlight of an evening event for me, but also because I've said it many times on this podcast, sometimes it's not great to meet your heroes, and I'm not saying Trey Cole's like my hero or anything, but sometimes it's better to just not meet musicians, famous people, whatever it might be, because you don't want that kind of image ruined, Suddenly you're like, I really love this person's movies, but goddamn, they're an asshole. I can assure you, with beyond the shadow of a doubt, that is not the case with Trey Cool. He could not have been nicer, funnier, kinder, receptive to the conversation we were having. Just one of the absolute nicest people I've ever met. Now I'm spoiled. I get to meet a lot of nice musicians, and I say, don't meet your heroes. I have had the privilege of meeting many musicians that I have followed over the years, a few directors, actors, that all comes from working in the industries I've worked in. But in a positive way, I can say that Trey Cool does in fact live up to his namesake of being very cool. And the reason he was there, his wife actually plays in a band that was playing that night. Unfortunately, I was coming from one venue to the other. I missed her band. But hope to catch them soon. And she was also very nice, and I've heard nothing but good things about that particular band. So hopefully we'll be catching them soon, and maybe Trey Cole just gonna be hanging out at other venues around Southern California here. Who knows? All right, parenting. So again, we'll get into more of this in the entertainment news side of things. But the first show I was at was the House of Blues on Saturday, and man, I'm getting short on time here. And that one was mainly for 2:30, because as you know, love 2:30. Again, another awesome group of musicians that are super kind. So I was mainly there, but Aquabats were headlining. And the reason I bring this up in parenting is immediately when I park, I see two parents and a kid. And you can tell from the look, it's like, all right, they're going to House of Blues. And this kid was probably like 4. And she turns to me, she goes, I'm going to see the Aquabats. And I was like, yeah, are you excited? Have you ever seen them? No, my first time. Cutest little kid. And as I'm getting in, I always forget the family aspect of the Aquabats. Now, obviously, I brought my kid to plenty of ska shows, but I knew it was going to be a late night, didn't want to bring, but going through there's just kids everywhere, and they're dressed up, and they're having a blast. And so I think part of it is I was reminded that they do have a youth fan base, the Aquabats do, but then on top of that, you obviously have parents who are introducing their kids to these bands, to ska music, to the Aquabats specifically, and I love to see the youth get into it. I say this at shows. I'm always like raising them right. Tara pointed it out as well, how many kids there were and how great that was, which of course can be great and not great, because they're shorter. So there was and I could tell there were two parents with two kids. As people were kind of moving through the pit, and they were very, very cautious of anybody, and so I think there is that one challenge of kids are smaller, and you can't see them, and especially for me, I'm 6'3", so I'm constantly trying to duck and not block people, just because of my height. So outside of that, I love to see the kids out at these shows, and Aquabats is definitely one of the cases for that. More and more bad ads during games. I was watching, this was not the Super Bowl. Luckily, the Super Bowl, I was kind of worried, and I was like, oh man, am I going to, we're going to get certain ads? And I talked about this either last episode or the episode before, but it happened yet again, I'm literally watching hockey. I think it was hockey. It was sports. It was either hockey or basketball, and I'm watching it, and my daughter is kind of half watching it, She enjoys, especially if it's certain teams. Might have been basketball. Might have been watching, because she, like I said before, she now is a Lakers fan, even though no one else in the house is a Lakers fan, but just because her team is called the Lakers. Regardless, we're watching, and I'm doing something else too. I'm half watching, and sure enough, when she looks up, I look up at the same time, and there is the ad for Cocaine Bear. And we are talking middle of the day, sporting event. This was Saturday, I believe. Just nothing to do. We're not talking like, oh, my kid is up late. Oh, I'm watching a cable. This was on network television. Network television. So immediately I got to turn the thing off. I'm going, okay, my daughter does not need to see ads for Cocaine Bear. No, this is not something. So again, I implore, and I fortunately for the Super Bowl, I didn't see any super inappropriate ads. You could argue like, oh, there's some scariness of the Flash, but even it's not a terrifying bear mauling people. It's the horror movies and stuff. October is like the worst for this. You can't watch sporting events in October because you get all the horror movies advertising. And I don't care, but you should be able to watch sports with kids. Please just stop. And thank you to Super Bowl for at least. And I think that's the funny thing is they remember when it's the Super Bowl because they know so many people are watching, but we just need to do it for all of the sports, at least during the day. If there's a basketball game that's on at 9 o'clock in the evening, it's like, okay, fine. That is later in the day. But if I'm watching a hockey game at noon on a Saturday, I don't even want to see an ad for something like that. Let alone have to worry that my kindergartner is going to see an ad like that. We can do better. Absolutely. Had a double sport. I pulled a double Saturday, 2 shows. My daughter had a double sports day on Saturday, which is not usually supposed to happen, but her tennis lesson got postponed. So we went from a basketball game in the morning to a tennis lesson in the afternoon. And I'm sure other parents can relate, and I'm still trying to navigate this. It's the balance of having activities but not overwhelming kids and just so that they don't burn out on anything. I feel like my wife and I have done a good job of this, but it's something I'm keenly aware of because we have hit a point where it's like she's got basketball, she's got tennis, she has dance class, she has Girl Scouts, and it's like that's a lot of things. She is in kindergarten, and then of course she has school and play dates and everything else, and cookie sales. There's still a bunch of cookies behind me, and so it's finding that balance. And I don't know exactly what it is. I think it's good to keep kids busy, but there is and I feel like it's a very fine line. So any of you parents out there that are kind of dealing with the multiple activities and stuff and trying to figure it out, know that I feel you. I'm there with you. And I don't even really have any tips other than if your kid is getting crabby and tired constantly, then you might want to back off on it. But it's hard to tell. Kids have so much energy. And then of course, my kid was this month. She was student of the month, for lack of a better word. You always see these bumper stickers. I didn't get a bumper sticker today, but she was student of the month at her school, which was awesome. She got this last year too, and I think they kind of, to an extent, rotate through the kids. But the kid, citizenship, schoolwork type thing, and they have a student of the month, and they invite the parents to come. So of course we go. But this morning, as I'm dragging myself out of bed after eating and drinking and watching the Super Bowl yesterday, going, man, hers had to occur the day after the Super Bowl. So here I am, completely exhausted in the assembly. And the funny thing is, somehow, multiple other kids that we know, the parents and the kids in other grades, we're also getting it. So we're all sitting there a bit exhausted. I need coffee. Not the best timing, but of course it was great to see that. And I think those kinds of things are important. I know there is a fine line with kids feeling left out, but I think it's important to recognize achievements, especially when it comes to being kind to. She's in kindergarten, so we're not talking about honor roll here. We're talking about kindness to others and paying attention and not disrupting, those kinds of things, and that's how it should be, and hopefully kids don't feel excluded. I've always said, there are certain things when it came to the presidential physical fitness test. I don't think they have that anymore. Yeah, that was a little bit exclusionary. I mean, we're talking. You want to talk about that? I was a 4-year letterman in track. I was a fairly decent athlete. I played basketball. I played roller hockey. I was also a late bloomer. So for those of you that are of a certain age, and maybe saw me play sports like in high school or even in 8th grade, through elementary school, I was not the blue, for sure, because that's like the higher award. Not even the red. I was like the yellow participant award because I was not a very athletic child. Now, if they had put inline skates on me and said, do this and this and this, I would have had the higher award. So stuff like that, you can feel left out. But it's my hope that other kids kind of see that and then want to do better as far as being kind to other classmates and stuff, especially at that age. I mean, that's the most important thing. It's socializing and letting them find their footing and everything else, you know. All right, let's move on to a little common sense. We're probably going to wrap it up a little early this week on our Common Sense Sunday on a Monday. So, a little common sense here. Speaking of common sense, more balloons and UFOs. We talked about the Chinese spy balloon that people were going to shoot out of the sky themselves, even though it was 66,000 feet in the air. Now it feels like we're just doing this daily. And not only that, but we're starting to call some of them unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, for those of you familiar with the lettering there and the wording there. And I'm sure there had been something like this in my lifetime, but it's almost like the new trending thing all of a sudden. And it has me wondering, have there just always been balloons and stuff flying up everywhere, and now we're suddenly just realizing it, or is this actually somebody is now sending them up, and that's why we're seeing it? I don't think anybody has an answer to that. Maybe somebody in the government does, but it feels like it's the new classified documents, you know? Like, they found some classified documents in Florida from the Orange Menace, and then suddenly they found classified documents at Biden's place, and then suddenly they found classified documents at Pence's place, and it's like, so just everybody got classified documents, and now suddenly there are balloons and unidentified flying objects everywhere, even over Canada, over Alaska. I feel like every day for the past week or so, we're hearing about more and more of these, and they're like, military had to shoot this down, military had to shoot this down, military had to shoot this down. It's like, what? Okay, I would like to understand why this is the new thing. And I was talking about it with a couple friends yesterday, and they were just like, hey, did you see they got another one? It's like, yeah. Are they just there? And I don't understand. It's the same thing with the classified documents. Like, did everybody just, it was a normal thing to take classified documents, and then once one of them got busted for it, then suddenly it's like a avalanche of like, oh, no, everybody. It's like, it's the new trend. We have digital trends, and then we have trends of things flying through the air. I don't know. All right. I want to talk from a common sense standpoint as far as one of the Super Bowl ads that came out. Couple things about this. You may have seen it, maybe not. And apparently there have been ads for this. I feel like I've seen billboards for it. It's an organization called He Gets Us, and it's all about Jesus. Now, and I didn't see this particular ad, but apparently they tout themselves as like non-denominational, kindness for all, and all this other stuff. But apparently, and again, fact-checking. It takes you about 2 seconds to find out this organization is actually tied to, has a very, very recognizable and large anti-LGBTQ connection. So spending millions of dollars touting themselves as loving to everyone, all this other bullshit like they usually do, when in fact they are also using money to fight against the rights of the LGBTQ community, and I'm sure at the same time against the women's health rights, their own independence over their own women's health. So the ad is obviously very deceiving because it touts inclusion for all, which is obviously not the case, as they don't have respect for the LGBTQ community. On top of that, they apparently tout Jesus as like this socialist and everything else, which is, you know, great. And it seems like a more authentic version of what the real Jesus would be. But the annoying thing is, apparently they spent about $100 million on these ads talking about how Jesus loves people or whatever it is. Regardless, what I can tell you is if Jesus was here today, he wouldn't want you spending $100 million on advertising about Jesus. He would probably rather you spend $100 million feeding people that are hungry, clothing some of the houseless out there, keeping people warm. It was in the low 40s last night here in Los Angeles. But no, we need to spend $100 million on ads during the Super Bowl to show everyone how important Jesus is, despite the fact that Jesus would not spend a bunch of money on an ad campaign talking about how awesome he is. And on top of that, I don't care what people say, Jesus would not be anti-LGBTQ. We can debate that regardless. He wouldn't be. Jesus said, love everyone. All right. The Borg. Have you heard of this? The Borg. This is apparently a new thing that exists with college kids. And what they're doing is they're taking gallon jugs like from water or milk, like the handle ones, and they're creating this thing that's called a blackout rage gallon. The interesting thing is I saw this at first and I went, okay, is this another crazy trend where people are killing themselves? And, maybe. It's very popular at colleges right now. But there's also this other interesting aspect to it so basically what they're doing, big gallon plastic jug. They put some booze in it, like tequila, rum, whatever, whiskey. They add some water, and then a lot of times some kind of flavoring. So, you've seen those water flavoring things. And then the important thing is they'll add electrolytes, like a liquid IV thing. So they're able to drink, stay hydrated, get some electrolytes, flavor it the way they want. But this is the interesting thing that I found, because apparently it started as a trend with COVID. Because if you went to college or you were ever at a college party, even a high school party, you've seen those, I've done it. Trash can full of lemon drop, and it's basically just vodka, ice, and lemonade or some kind of lemon, and everybody's drinking out that thing. We're spreading the hell out of some germs here, folks. So when COVID hit, colleges were like, we can't share. So individually carrying around their own gallons. And on top of that, you're also not getting drinks from a stranger who could possibly be putting something nefarious into your drink. So I found this fascinating. The blackout rage gallon, I'm sure it could be that way, but in all honesty, it doesn't seem like a horrible idea. Now, if somebody's drinking a whole gallon of whiskey or vodka, no. But if you're talking, it's a bunch of water and electrolytes and then some booze or whatever, I don't see this as a horrible thing. And interestingly enough, when I started reading this, because I remembered myself when I was in college, I drank as much as the next person when I was in college. But people would always look at me weird. Especially one apartment I lived in particular was not far from my film school. So we ended up with people just constantly at our house for parties and just hanging out and everything else. And people would always question me because, especially early on in the evening, I would often be holding a gallon water jug, 2/3 halfway full, because I'd already drank a bunch of it. So with my first couple of drinks for the night back, and this is what kept me alive, I think, because in college you're poor, you have good eating habits and maybe not always hydrating. This is before the water bottle craze where everyone's like, you got to drink 50 gallons of water a day and all this other stuff. And, I know that's been debunked to an extent, but college kids, we're not hydrating. So to begin my nights, I would have a gallon jug of water. I was basically double fisting it, water and a drink or a beer or whatever else. So I do, on top of everything else, I do see the appeal of that, keeping yourself hydrated, because that's the thing. I mean, they say, have a drink of water. Have a drink, have a glass of water. And really, everybody should try doing that. All right. Tubi. I hate Tubi. I don't even really know what the hell Tubi is or was. I still don't really. But if you were watching the Super Bowl yesterday, you might have gotten tricked the same way I did. So Tubi put up an ad, and it was a trick. It made it look like you were watching the game. And what's extra too is I'm streaming it on my Android TV. It was like the same interface as Android TV. It looked like somebody had sat on the remote and it started clicking out of the game and everything else and clicking on something else. And I'm going, all right. And literally, I jump up. And there's a couple other people watching the game. Some other kids were playing and everything. I jump up, I'm like, where's the remote? Who sat on the remote? Where is the remote? And I literally clicked out of the stream on Fox Sports. And then I realized, oh, that was an ad. So Tubi, I would like to offer you a heartfelt, hearty, and sincere fuck you. Your ad was not clever. It was, in fact, annoying. If anyone thought that was clever, you probably don't think I'm clever. Because we're very different in that way. But I did appreciate someone tweeted about it, and they were like, so Tubi got 100 million people to stand up at the same time and say, who's sitting on the remote? It's like, no, yeah. And I had a couple friends, because I posted something about it, and I had a couple friends that were like, got me too. Literally clicking out of it. Not funny, Tubi. Find better ways to spend your money. All right, let's talk about some entertainment news, and then we're going to wrap it up, because I'm exhausted. I don't know what the hell's even happening today. We're off the rails. I got other stuff to do. All right, let's run through this real quick. Super Bowl ads. I say this every year. They really are just nostalgic retreads. You know, you could say, well, the Tubi thing was original. Like, yeah, except that it made me jump up and think that we're missing part of the game, which is what we're sitting around doing. But it feels like more and more every year, it's just retreads of nostalgic shows. We had to see Alicia Silverstone and the Breaking Bad guys, and just, you know, that's what we do every year. It gets tired after a while. Although there were one or two decent ads. I will say my favorite ad was the Dunkin' Donuts ad, which apparently was they had kind of kept that one under wraps. Dunkin' Donuts ad with Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez. That one was quite funny. I would say that was my favorite. I don't usually pay full attention to the commercials. If I'm still sitting there eating or whatever, I do see them. I'm not specifically like turning it off. But I'm not one of the commercial watchers. Like I said, I watch a little of the halftime show. The commercials that I catch while I'm sitting there, but that's kind of when you're talking between stuff. But that's just because when I'm watching with people that are very engaged in the game, and that's just kind of how that goes. All right, but speaking of trailers, there was a trailer for The Flash with Ezra Miller, and this is one just and it's funny. I talked about it with the people I'm watching the game with yesterday, and it's like this guy, Ezra Miller. Just Google him; it'll take you 2 seconds. Beating people up, breaking into places, like getting in all kinds of trouble. And DC is putting him at the forefront of their whole DC universe thing. And yes, for those of you that saw the ad, you say, well, it's Batman and blah, 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 everything else. It doesn't matter. It's still a Flash movie starring a horrible human being, an abusive human being, and Warner Brothers and DC should be ashamed of themselves for continuing to push this guy as a star. We're talking about the studio that literally got rid of Henry Cavill. They scrapped the Batgirl or Batwoman, whichever, I'm not sure, but scrapped that movie. They had a bunch of it shot, I believe, only to put Ezra Miller at the forefront. So James Gunn is, I don't want to say he's dead to me, but he needs to make some better decisions. I've enjoyed some of his filmmaking in the past, but I will not have anything to do with giving that actor any money, because I'm telling you, I don't want to get into the details. Just Google Ezra Miller, and you'll see all the trouble that particular actor has gotten into over the past few years. All right, AMC theaters. You might have heard about this one. They're changing their pricing. I guess we're just all taking a cue from Ticketmaster, and it's almost like dynamic pricing. But it is you're going to end up paying more for better seats at AMC theaters coming up here soon. And, of course, they are getting a ton of backlash from fans. I get it. This is not something that should be like a tiered pricing. We're not talking about a sporting event or a concert. It is a movie theater going experience. Now, immediately in my head, I went, well, no, you can. So they're like, well, we're letting people pick your seats. And you can actually, with certain theaters, you can book a particular seat within that theater as long as nobody else has. But they all cost the same. You're paying the same amount of money. I have a feeling AMC is going to get enough backlash on this, kind of the way Netflix did and had to backtrack on their whole, password sharing, being at home for, like, on your home network for 30 days or blah, 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 blah. So we'll follow this one and see what happens, but not a great move from AMC. And part of me does get it, because the theater industry took a huge hit over COVID. So, I'm all in favor of, and I'm not a big movie theater goer. I'd rather be at home. I wait until a movie comes out on Blu-ray, DVD, streaming, unless it's something just so massive that you got to see on a big screen. But that's me. I'm like the worst film school graduate on the face of the earth when it comes to that stuff. But it's just, I'm all for them recouping the past couple years, but there's got to be other ways to do it. You know, offer other kind of packages, whatever it is, food things. You know, not a way of keeping someone who has less disposable income from having a decent seat at a movie theater. That's just I don't see how that's fair at all. All right, one more thing I want to mention, and then and I've mentioned it a couple times. Part of the reason I'm so exhausted, had a show Friday night up in the Valley. I was seeing the All Right Boys along with band Aoki. I would highly recommend checking them out. It is karaoke with a live band. I'm not a karaoke singer, but I was not one of the main singers, but I was, running around having fun and singing kind of in the background with some of that fun stuff. But then Saturday, like I said, I pulled the double, drove down to House of Blues in Anaheim, saw the amazing 2:30, saw, probably 3 or 4 songs from the Aquabats. I love the Aquabats, but I've been seeing them for 30 years, and I knew I wanted to get over to Alex's Bar with plenty of time to be able to see Urethane and Bad Cop, which ended up being a great decision because, like I said, I ran into a bunch of friends. Ran into Trey Cool, who, like I said, lives up to his namesake. Super nice. But all that being said, I am exhausted. That is why my voice is gone. Also from talking yesterday, but singing at the top of my lungs with 2:30. Those are two bands. Because I'm often at shows, but some shows I'm not kind of singing and yelling and cheering as much. 2:30 and Bad Cop are two particular bands where I am singing, I am yelling, I am cheering, I'm hooting and hollering and clapping and everything else. Took a lot of energy out of me. In fact, I was smart. I bought some overpriced chicken strips and fries at House of Blues because you can never be positive if Alex is going to have food. They have like chips and nuts and stuff, but you can never be positive if they're going to have food. So I was able to pace and sustain myself, but I did find myself out until I think I left Alex's after 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm hitting an age where for shows I will do it, but I'm going to be exhausted the next day, and then of course had to get up yesterday and kind of get everything ready, and didn't have a huge party, just had, like 6 adults, 5-6 adults or whatever it is, and a couple kids running around, nothing crazy, but still had to clean up a little bit, get everything prepared, and then I'll leave you with this. We don't have cable or satellite in my house. We have internet, of course. We do a lot of streaming, but I also have antenna for the TV. So when it comes to sporting events that are on network television, I can watch them there a lot. I go down and turn the TV on my deck. Antenna doesn't want to get Fox. So I'm going, oh my God, now I got to stream the thing. So then I scramble to figure out how I can stream it and actually pulled the Android TV with a remote down there. My Wi-Fi decided to go crazy. Had extra stress, but fortunately did get the game moving, which was good. So, and one more thing before we finish up for this week. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone out there. If you have a significant other, make sure this is really your last day to don't be that one running out on Valentine's Day trying to buy flowers or candy or something. Take care of that today, because it's Valentine's Day tomorrow. And because it's Monday, and this is Common Sense Sundays, episode 99, on a Monday. All right, that's going to do it. Don't forget, follow us on Facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. Also, YouTube.com/GoTellItToTheWall. My own personal Instagram, which is @SoCalSean, SoCalSean. And make sure you bookmark SeanO'RourkeLive.com and check out our Patreon campaign as well as our merch website, both of which link directly from SeanO'RourkeLive.com. As I said, this has been episode 99 of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall, hosted by me, your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. Should be back next week, same wall place, same wall time. Until then, wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers, remember, no matter what you do, no matter who you're with, no matter where you go, and no matter why you are doing it, always use common sense.